I'm Bouwe van der Eems, chairperson of the Pestalozzi Trust, the Civil Defence Fund for Home Education and Small Schools. So Mark Rees has talked about exciting things. He talked about real life. He talked about principles. I'm talking about exactly the opposite. Politics and law. Got nothing to do with principles, totally unrelated to real life, but it can affect real life. So there's the saying, you might not be interested in politics, but politics is very much interested in you. So there are some threats to home education that you must be aware of, and that's what I'm going to talk about today. So we are going to talk about BELA Bill. So BELA stands for Basic Education Law Amendments Bill. So a bill is not a law, it is a proposed law. So that is a law that is a proposal that is submitted to Parliament. Only after Parliament has approved it and the President has signed it will it become law and can be enforced by government officials. So this is not law yet, but there are things we can do to stop it to become law, and that's what we're going to talk about. So I'm going to talk about the driving forces. What is behind BELA Bill? Why do they want it? Or why does the government want to introduce this? Concerns about it. What effect can this have on our lives? The process that BELA has to go through to become law, and then how can we influence this? How can we stop this? Firstly, the driving forces. The driving forces in education, firstly in the state. What does the state want to achieve with education? We all think, maybe, that everybody just wants to make sure that our children get a good education so that they become independent, productive citizens. That it does not seem to be the case. So here is an extract from the strategy and tactics document of the ANC in 2001. So you must remember, they're the governing party, and every political party will convert their ideology into laws. So, and this is repeated. This is not only in 2001, it's repeated in the strategy and tactic documents that are approved in other years, 2017, 2012, it's been repeated. This thing repeats there. And it's about the education for this party is to transfer their values to society. So if you don't like their values, and the education is about transferring their values to society, this BELA Bill might not be a good idea for you. Then, the Minister, Angie Motshekga, in Parliament, in response to a question in Parliament, was asked, what are you doing about new legislation, etc.? And this was her response. Her intention with new laws is to make home education part of the school system. They don't recognize home education as something that's outside the school system. No, they want to make it part of the school system. So they are, we can get to that. There is another statement that confirms what I've quoted from the strategy and tactics document. This is what Angie Motshekga on Twitter, and you can find this tweet if you search for it. It is my duty to help educate the people of South Africa on how to vote for the ANC. So it's not about educating children to become productive citizens. Education has got a political purpose. there is a report by Umalusi saying, if you don't want your children to follow the state curriculum, the only way to resolve that problem is to leave the country and follow the curriculum of another country state. So that's what, on paper, in a report by Umalusi. Another quote. So there's been the attempts by government to ban home education, and here is a request from the Council of Education Ministers. So the Council of Education Minister is a body consisting of all the various provincial ministers and the national minister. They've requested the department to investigate the policy of scrapping home education. Fortunately, the officials came back and say it's going to be difficult to do this because of the Constitution and the Schools Act. But this gives us some insight into the thinking of our education ministers. And here is another extract from the SIA study. SIA means Social Economic Impact Assessment. So the Department of Education issued a policy in 2018 on home education. And then with every policy, they have to do a socio-economic impact assessment to understand what the impact on this is. And this is a quote from there, that they want to make stringent provisions to make it difficult to do home education. So this is the intention, stated intention of the policy of home education. So that's what government wants. And this is my summary of what parents want. They want to take responsibility to do what's in the best interest of each individual child. So you can see the agenda of parents and the agenda of the state are not the same. So, the government is trying to promote its agenda through using its majority, while using a political party will use its majority in parliament or provincial legislators to promote the agenda of their policy. So BELA bill is part of this, and if BELA bill goes through as it's in its current form and we don't do anything about it, these are the possible consequences. BELA bill has got the potential to transform home education into an unaffordable form of state education at home. So, and you can see this matches with, they see home education as just an extension of the public school system. And how do they do that? Well, they want to prescribe curriculum. So one of the articles in the BELA bill says the content and skills taught by the curriculum you use must be in line with the national curriculum statement. And then they want to check that you do it, and they are introducing assessment by means of government-approved people to assess your home education. And then the other thing is, it just entrenches the current system to outlaw all education institutions except schools. So the Constitution gives citizens the right to establish independent education institutions. But the School Act only allows one type of institution, namely a school. And an institution is a much broader concept than a school. A school is, as defined in the Schools Act, is a thing where learners are enrolled for a grade. So the school system is based on this idea of you've got grades and you've got subjects. And if you treat knowledge in a different way than chopping it up into grades, into subjects, and many of the education approaches do not make use of grades and subjects, then that will be outlawed. Okay, now we're going to go through the process that legislation takes before it becomes law. So, what is supposed to happen is you first got to have a law that's approved by Parliament. But a law is often not detailed enough to work out the details. So law says all children must go to school. But to work out the more details of how the law is applied, you've got regulations. And the regulations will say, well, a school building must comply to all these requirements in order to be a school or whatever. And then after that, you design policy. So policy are guidelines for officials how they should apply the law. So that's what the normal process should be. How the Department of Basic Education does it, it puts the cart before the horse. It first approved a policy in 2018. They are busy with the law now, and then afterwards they're hopefully going to issue regulations. There are all kinds of problems with this because the law must empower government to make regulations. But there is a clause in the law, in BELA bill, to empower the minister to make regulations, but we've got no idea what those regulations will be. That means this law can give the minister infinite powers to regulate home education. Now, I think we had experience of this the last 2 years. This government, South Africa, has been ruled by the rule of the minister through regulations and not law. So the same is happening in education. So, a law follows a process. In high categories, it first goes through a process pre-Parliament. Somebody drafts the law to be submitted to Parliament, and it goes through a process to do that. Then it is submitted to Parliament. There it follows a process. And once it's approved by Parliament, there's another process before it becomes law. So we are now in the middle. The BELA bill has been submitted to Parliament December last year. So this is just an overview of what happened before it was submitted and what we did. I'll go through it quickly. A task team started drafting BELA bill in 2013 already. There was a public participation exercise in 2017 where there were 5,000 letters sent to the Department of Basic Education. Of those 5,000, 1,000 were from homeschoolers. You must remember, BELA bill is not only about homeschooling, it's about public schools, it's about private schools, and home education. So those others come from parents in public schools, etc. Then there was a stakeholder consultation with unions, organizations that represent governing bodies, and the Pestalozzi Trust also had a meeting with the minister. 2020, it went through NETLAC. I'm not going to discuss that. More towards the end of 2020, a bill goes to OXLA. That's the Office of the Chief State Law Advisor. So the purpose of the Chief State Law Advisor is to check that the bill doesn't contradict the Constitution. So the Pestalozzi Trust submitted a legal opinion to OXLA on one specific point, namely home visits. So one of the items in BELA bill is the requirement that that there must be a home visit before a child is registered for home education. So we feel this is infringement on your right to privacy, and we submitted a legal opinion to that extent. Then we submitted some research in 2021. There was a chem campaign, one of the processes that a law must go through, or a bill. It must be approved by the Council of Education Ministers. We launched a campaign and asked parents send a letter to the provincial minister before she goes, or he or she goes to chem, so that they can make an informed decision. Then it goes to a body called the social cluster, which are what they call the social cluster ministers, which is health, public wealth, social services and education. And then it went to cabinet. When it went to cabinet, the Pestalozzi Trust wrote a letter to the president saying this bill is not suitable to be submitted to parliament. He must not approve it to go to parliament, but we didn't receive any response, but we did it anyway. So then it was submitted to parliament December 2021. Okay, quick one. Laws, there are two categories of laws. One is Schedule 4, one is Schedule 5. The education law is what you call a Schedule 4, because education is what they call a national competency as well as a provincial competency. So there's a national Department of Education, but the operations and most of the stuff is done in the provinces. So because of that, the bill will follow a certain process as it goes through Parliament, because it's a Schedule 4. So it has got national and provincial inputs must be acquired. Okay, so this is the process that a bill goes through when it goes through Parliament. And this is where we are now. It's been submitted. And the next step is that BELA bill will be published for public comment. And you and all parents will receive the opportunity to write to Parliament and submit their objections. So they are in the process of preparing advertisements that will go out. It can happen any moment. So it can even happen this weekend. So that is in the process of happening. So there will be advertisement placed, and then parents will have a month to respond. So, and it's important that we generate as many as possible letters to Parliament to show them that there is resistance to this. The Pestalozzi Trust is busy developing all kinds of online campaigns to make it easy for you to write your letter. So, after public participation, it's been discussed and analyzed. They take all the inputs from the public in a committee. Then it will be debated in the National Assembly. Now, before it's debated in National Assembly, it is important that we must get support from as many members of Parliament as possible. And one of the things we've developed is there are what you call constituency heads. So every member of Parliament is, parties are supposed to allocate every member of Parliament to a specific area. And you can contact those people and have discussions with them. So, but we'll get to that later. So once it's through the National Assembly, once it's through the National Assembly, it goes through the National Council of Provinces. As I said, it's a bill that's got national and provincial aspects. So therefore, it goes through the National Congress of the provinces, and then there will be another public participation exercise. So that will be another opportunity to present to the National Congress of Provinces, and then there will be a debate again, and then it's passed by Parliament. I'm not going to discuss this. If there's a discrepancy between Provincial Council and the National Assembly, there's a process it follows, that is this. And hopefully there will be dispute. After Parliament approves it, it's submitted to the president, and the president must now sign it. So it can take years before the president signs it. So it will, again, we'll have campaigns targeted at the presidency to ask him to send this bill back to Parliament. But if it's signed into law, it's not the end, it's just the beginning again. As we say, a luta continua. The battle just goes on. So if this becomes law and government tries to enforce it, we will challenge it in the courts. And if the courts find the bill to be unconstitutional, the courts can send it back to Parliament again. And then we go through the whole process again. So what can you do? Firstly, join the Pestalozzi Trust. As you saw, we submitted legal opinions. We will have to have legal challenges to the law. We are developing campaigns. All those things cost money. So we need people to support our cause. Thirdly, join associations in your area. We need many representative organizations to have many voices to talk politicians. And thirdly, support the campaigns. So the next campaign will be for the public participation to BELA bill to the National Assembly. Please support these things. You'll get all the details if you're a member of the Pestalozzi Trust through our newsletters. It will be on our Facebook page as well. So please support us.